Hey, and welcome to FitMitTuro Fitness Podcast, a podcast for people who want to get no BS information about fitness and know that fitness is about so much more than losing scale weight. It's about feeling confident in your skin and empowered in your life. I'm your host, Turo Virta, personal trainer, strength and nutrition coach, and most of all, a husband of my beautiful wife, Miriam. Each week, my guests and me will give you some no BS fitness tips and motivate you to take action in your own personal fitness journey as we talk about nutrition, exercise, mindset, personal development, and executing in life with enjoyable but still effective strategies. If your goal is to look better, feel and be strong and experience transformation from inside out, you, my friend, are in the right place. Thank you for jumping in. And now let's jump into today's episode. So welcome to FitMitTuro Fitness Podcast. Today's episode, I have amazing guest, Tom Swales. So before introducing Tom or telling so amazing things, I'm just not saying it, I really mean it. I'm very, very excited to learn from Tom. So first of all, welcome to my show, Tom, and shortly introduce yourself. And you have quite a surprising story. So if you mind a little bit sharing about your story and background.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Turo. So my name is Tom Swales. I'm the founder of Calm Physio in Barrie, Ontario. It's a 5,000 square foot facility. My wife and I started it and grew it into 27 employees. Creator of the Advanced Movement Therapist Certificate, where over my course of 20 plus years and taking all the courses, trying to remove confusion and organize my practice with regards to, rehabilitation and performance, kind of brought it all together. We have two young children, 10 and 8 years old. And last year I almost died. So I really got to test, put my money where my mouth is with regards to what I know and the system that I created. So to add a little bit more context onto it, last June of 2023, I got put in the hospital ICU for what's called invasive strep A. And the streptococcus bacteria that typically causes a sore throat got in my bloodstream somehow, quickly started shutting down my organs. I had heart failure, liver kidney failure. They had to put me on dialysis. I had rhabdomyolysis. I had clotting issues. My hands and feet went black. And the first 7 days, my wife had to sit there in the ICU and was told to get her affairs in order because not many people make it out of this type of situation. So after 10 days in the ICU, I went to the rehab floor. My ankle got infected. So they had to do surgery on the ankle so that, losing 50 pounds of muscle, I went in at 220 pounds. I came at 170. I didn't really learn how to walk. I couldn't stand. I had no strength to do anything. From being independent and everybody relying on me, I had to rely on everybody to do everything for me, which was a big eye opener. And not taking for granted my health, my function, is easily taken away from. And for my odds, he's like, "Oh, less than 20%." I was like, "Oh wow, I was sick." He's like, "You were super sick." Wow. So, and with all the things, so they even shared with me there was 4 other people that went into the hospital that year with the invasive strep with less stuff going on. I didn't make it. I was one of 5 that survived. And they said, the only reason you're scared is because you can't. They realized that I've been paying to, which is for the last, I'm 45 for 35 years, really paid off.
Wow. That's such a amazing story. So what realizations you made that was for your health, like obviously to survive, come out from this kind of thing, it's a amazing story. But it stops you for sure. So what made this what you realized after this all, what happened?
Well, my wife and I realized that life is short and, you can't take for granted what's been given to you or what you work for, because it can be quickly taken away. Excuse me. And so this year we traveled with the kids more. We made more time for the kids. We also learned that our amazing staff that runs our business, runs our business, they didn't need us there, which is awesome. The leadership that took over, they just said, no, Kylie, you stay with Tom. We're okay. We don't need you guys here. Look after him. So, it took me some time to get back, but, I really had to use my system and use what I knew to rebuild my body back, because I needed help standing up. I couldn't get down to the floor. I couldn't walk on my own. I couldn't do anything. It was very humbling experience. And, being in the hospital in, chronic pain, I can understand chronic pain now, because everything I did hurt. It's like a bomb went off in your body, and every single tissue and cell is just kind of screaming at you all at once. But, I did what I could. A little bit of workouts. I was all crooked because I had to have IVs in the right side of my arm because the left arm was full of clots. So, my colleagues would come over and do a little bit of manual therapy on me, what they could. I was seeing an osteo friend. I was seeing my physio colleagues. And then I eventually saw my chiro, a friend of mine who's a chiro, to straighten me out. And I did a lot of IV therapy. I did, methylene blue. I've seen a functional medicine doctor, alpha lipoic acid. And, for 3 weeks, he got all my metrics. He was getting all my blood work from the hospital, and everything was just trashed. And he was funny. He's got a traditional Chinese medicine background. And he's just like, so a bomb went off in your body and I have to be the cleanup crew. And, he prescribed the first couple of weeks was methylene blue, ozone therapy, alpha lipoic acid, iron, because I was super deficient, and an adrenal support. And within 3 weeks, my blood work changed dramatically. So like my testosterone went from 173 nanograms per deciliter to 717.
Wow.
That quickly in 3 weeks. So, everything started moving pretty quickly. And that's the importance of kind of the chemistry behind our bodies. Is when the chemistry is off, we don't have the right molecules, our cells can't function, like the mitochondria. So, doing breath work, doing cold plunges. Everyone talks about mitochondria health for sports and performance. I'm like, well, but it's the thing that's keeping us alive is our mitochondria, essentially. And if they're poisoned and toxin because they were ancient bacteria, we can't produce energy. We can't recover. We can't accommodate to stresses in our life. So, kind of using all the biohacking stuff that I've been learning for the last decade, also came into effect, along with my understanding of neurology, biology, chemistry, physics, and the human body on rehabilitation, and then moving to high performance again.
Do you know what caused that, or is it just a random thing? Like I have no idea. And I assume most of my audience don't have what is causing this, what happened to you, and is there some reason behind it, or?
Yeah, the only thing they said, it was very strange. The only thing I can think of was the week prior, the Sunday prior. I had a little bit of a sore throat. I was working in the heat. It was 32 plus degrees with humidity. I was working outside, and I'm like, I got a little bit of a sinus infection. And then the next day, it kind of moved into my throat. And I'm like, okay, I have a little bit of a sore throat. And then, that was the Monday. Tuesday felt crummy, kind of like a little bit of a low-grade fever. Wednesday felt fine. Worked out outside, went to work. By Thursday, at the end of the day of the workday, I was chilled. I was freezing cold. It was 30 degrees outside. I'm like, this is weird. Went to bed at 4:00 in the afternoon, woke up 8:00 the next day, felt pretty sick, rested all day. And then come Saturday, by the time I get up and I'm like, I can't move my neck. I thought I had meningitis. So I told Kylie, my wife, I'm like, you need to call an ambulance now. And they took me in. By the time they figured out what was going on, I was crashing pretty quickly. So they got me the right medications. I saw all the right doctors. So they were able to kind of stop the septic shock in its tracks. So it didn't progress any further, but my body was already shutting down so quickly. They were pretty fearful of, me not making it. So yeah, they don't know how it got in. There's theories. They just know that that's kind of what caused it. And then they had to put me on hard antibiotics IV antibiotics, because of the ankle infection. I had to go home with IVs. So it was like, I couldn't eat anything.
Yeah. Are you still hearing? I lost the last 10 seconds. I couldn't hear what you said.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So I had the hard antibiotics going through my system, and it's pretty hard. It's kind of the most potent stuff. Did you turn off my video to keep the connection?
No,
okay. I wasn't sure if that was you or me.
It's just that because audio quality is at the moment it's a little bit struggling. Okay. So I thought that it might be helpful. So what, like you mentioned, these kind of situations, they are like that hit on the face, and like you said, that I'm sure you thought about like what is actually important in a life. Yeah. Like we are. Yeah. We are trying to push our business, do everything what we can, and then in the end, like I'm sure you see it too. Like sometimes, we kind of take things granted and forgot our own health, and what this made you realize, or those people who are close to you, what they were thinking, or did you see any changes in their behavior?
Yeah. So a lot of my friends, like I had such great support from family and friends. They're coming over, they're calling my wife, hey, do you need me to help you out with anything? She's like, she didn't trust me being home by myself. She's like, I have to go out for 2 hours. Hey, Andrew, can you come over and babysit my husband for a bit? I was like, you think I'm going to like do something stupid here? She's like, I don't trust you. I'm like, okay, fine. But it really showed us that, as hard as we were pushing into the business, to try and make it grow and be the best it can. And we didn't have to push so hard, especially now, because we have such great systems in place. We have great staff, and we have great culture. Like those three things are in place, and it allows the business to run. And now it also has given us some freedom to grow other businesses that we can also, bring that staff into potentially to look at other ventures or grow as professionals, or travel with their families. So yeah, it's allowed us to take a step back and prioritize our time towards our kids more. So it's not like, oh, mom and dad are always working. And at the end of the day,
yeah, I lost you again a little bit, but yeah, that's what you learn. Like it's kind of sad to say, but that you learn through these kind of things, and you think that does this really need to happen? But at least I think that everything in life, it happens for a reason, and depending like how you take on things, and think, if you think that if you are like not taking kind of that victim role and telling that this is happened for me for a reason, and then you like, I'm sure you learned also like that how amazing friends you have, how much how great, amazing, supportive wife you have, family, how important they are. And then, it's not that just to not take granted, and thinking like that even those workouts, and it's kind of same with like, it's not the same, but like kind of my background when my father passed away, and only at the age of 70. And that was for me when he lost his health at the age of 60, and then basically didn't get out from hospital. That was for me a moment, even it was a sad moment. But then on the other hand, I think that it was for me eye opener that this is not going to take forever. And now being 42 myself, if I start to think like that, if I have like 15 years, maybe I have 20. But if that is all what I have left, that how I'm going to spend it, if I'm going to like be in my deathbed, who knows when that moment will come. But if I look back, that what I'm proud of, what I'm thinking people think about me or something, they don't think like that, if I did great business or just focus on growing business. And but it's also like what kind of person you are, and also like that my own health, even everything is now, I would say, pretty okay, at least so far as I know. But
Yeah.
do not take it granted, and to know that it's the work, that to be that in that way, like obviously you never know what is going to happen, but to make sure that at the moment when I look back, that I can tell myself that I did everything possibly I could. I wouldn't change anything. I would do exactly the same things, and not thinking like in, who knows, in 10, 15 years from now, and think that what if I would do this, or
Yeah.
I would change things, because often it's when things happen, it's already kind of already late, and until everything is going okay, especially like I feel like in age of 30 something, 40s, things are getting busy. They are busy, and so many things are going on, and then it's always so easy to forget our own health, and that's something what really made me stop and think that I'm doing okay, even if I don't make the most successful business, or don't work for
Yep.
15 hours per day.
Yeah. No, I've always been a big believer in, whatever you prioritize, you'll prescribe. You practice what you preach. We all hear that. But, coming from an athletic background myself, and just enjoying lifting weights and learning movements, gymnastics, kettlebells, anything I can get my hands on, and then prescribe that to my clients, not just from a rehab perspective, but from a performance perspective.
Mhm.
You have to, if you're not going to prioritize that in your own life, why would anybody else?
Yeah.
But you don't do it. And people are, oh, because then to me, if I've done my workout in the day, I'm like, okay, great. I checked that one. I pulled out one, and from there, everything else is just easy because I now have the energy and resiliency to manage stress. So ever let my health, and again, you have energy to get up with my walker, walk to the couch in the living room, and sit down and read a book. That is it. That was the first 3 weeks of being home, 4 weeks. And then when I finally got off the antibiotics, then I could finally start to eat food, and I started slowly putting on weight. Then I had more energy. I would still try and go out into the backyard with my gym out there and do like little push-ups on the bar, standing push-ups, wall push-ups. So I would try and do something, but it was just the very bare minimum. And then I'd be exhausted. But again, I felt like I needed to do something. And if I had something in the tank that could enable me to do what I needed to do to kind of keep pursuing my health back and get it back to where it was, that was it. So, it hurt. It hurt every day. It sucked. And I'm like, the pain of not doing it, the pain of not, getting back to doing the things I love hurt more than the pain I was experiencing in that moment. So that was my motivator to suck it up, push through the pain, and then, rest as best as you can, and then do it again.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking like that if somebody like this is like, I'm like a former athlete, like myself, as you too, like if somebody is taking away what you kind of love the most, enjoy the most, like apart from obviously family or something, but if somebody is taking that away, what kind of pain that creates, that's like the biggest penalty you can get, or how to say it.
Yeah, it's I think it's a lot of forward thinking. My babka, she's my grandmother, who's Polish. She's 97. She lives independently. and she's got, chronic foot pain, all kinds of other health issues, but she moves and walks every day. And she moves and walks even if she can't get outside. She walks around the house. And my mom's like, well, if it hurts so much, why do you walk? She's like, because the thought of me never being able to get up and walk on my own and be independent hurts more than my feet.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's awesome. Because she's a farmer. She's 97. She's got all of her factions. Are like smart as a whip, still fit, and she just has physical body pain. She could easily just sit and watch TV.
Oh yeah.
But she won't. She still farms. She still does have a garden as much as possible. But she moves past that pain, that physical pain, because the emotional pain of losing everything, her independence hurts more.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And when my mom told me that, I'm like, Bobka's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. No, but this is one of the best things I learned too. Like when your reason why you are doing is when it's more painful. Like for you, it's losing or leaving your family alone or not able to do those things. For me, it was pain of seeing my dad suffering, and that I feel like that pain is greater than pain of actually doing the work. Then you have a very good chance being more consistent.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So let's get into that. Was amazing story to hear, and I'll
Sorry, I didn't mean to derail your, what you wanted to go over today, but
yeah, no, that's these conversations. I don't plan this too much ahead. We go where it goes, and to hear this kind of story, like wow, that's such a great life lesson, and. But today, actually, what I wanted to talk about is about ice hockey and athletic performance in ice hockey. Like I mentioned, you are a specialist in this area, and like myself, I know I don't share it too much in publicly. I'm also strength and conditioning coach myself with the Italian women's national team, and we are actually
awesome.
when we are recording this, we are just about to start the trainings camp in November here in Italy, and our goal is coming home Olympics in 2026. So there is that time is getting all the time closer, and we are trying to make obviously most likely we won't win the gold medal, but just to make our country proud, and that's the main goal. And obviously there is a lot of work to do before that. But let's talk about those unique demands of ice hockey on athletes' body, and how understanding these requirements shapes training and therapy.
Yeah, so we analyze
I hear you really bad. Okay, now
no.
you get
okay. Good. All right. So it's important to understand, individual sports and athletes' demands on their bodies with regards to movement patterns. What stresses are they putting on? How do we optimize kind of their recovery? But I think, I always take a step back and I look at the human athlete before the specialized one. And meaning, does my athlete, this very highly specialized, high output human being, can they do basic things? Can they bend forward and touch their toes? Can they lean back without any back pain? Can they stand on one leg? Can they squat? What are their shoulders doing? Do they rotate symmetrically to one side versus the other? And something like hockey, you're standing on knives on a slippery surface is what I tell people, and you're doing it in casts. So the feet aren't working like they're supposed to naturally, and then you're on a surface that doesn't move naturally. And then for dry land, now you expect them, okay, let's get out of these, take these things off your feet, take this thing out of your hand, and let's start moving symmetrically. The problem that can occur, especially with any kind of rotation athlete who's kind of rotating or shooting or striking in one direction, is it creates a twist. It creates torque in the system. And that can create imbalances from the visual system, from the vestibular system, from the cervical spinal system. So for example, if I'm a right-handed shooter, I'm always rotate to the left. Right. I feel is
You are cutting. You are cutting. I really hear you.
Where did you lose me?
Yeah, just on the rotational stuff.
Okay. Yep. So because hockey rotates dominantly to one side, we have to look at, well, when they're out of their skates, equipment, can they rotate to the other side more? Because if they have difficulty rotating back the other way, or their body's twisted, or their posture is kind of rotated towards that dominant side, when you put a barbell on their back, or you give them a deadlift or a bench press or something symmetrical, it's going to create torque in the system.
Mm-hmm.
Now, anytime there's asymmetry in movement or strength, the nervous system doesn't really like that. So it tends to put the brakes on. So if I can balance out their bodies, then I take the brakes off their nervous system, because the primary job of the nervous system is survival. It's protection of the individual, protection of the species. So anytime there's discomfort or there's some kind of asymmetrical movement pattern that's occurring in the body, the nervous system doesn't feel safe with that and will immediately put the brakes on or start to inhibit force output. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I try to do with any athlete, regardless of hockey, golf, doesn't matter. I want to make sure that they have these fundamental patterns. Can you move with some form of symmetry? Because if they can't, if I load them, it's going to reinforce that. And then it's going to cause overloading of tissues. It's going to cause overuse, misuse, or abused tissue issues. Mm-hmm. So the first thing I want to do is make sure that they can move with some form of symmetry. So once they have this, then I start to look at, okay, well, what athletic positions or postures do they require? And with hockey players, it's typically kind of like a 2-footed athletic stance, like setting up for a deadlift and lunges. With any of my NHL hockey players, I never have them back squat, because one, they don't need to do it. And two, a lot of them have such crappy ankle, foot mobility, hip mobility, thoracic extension mobility issues, that loading them up is not giving them, it's not setting up their nervous system in an ideal way. So I use an example. I was worked with Matt Bolesky for a number of years, 9 years, I believe, and big boy, but very stiff. Mm-hmm. And he was not a squatter, just physiologically, anatomically, he could not squat. And I'm like, okay, well, guess what we're never doing? We're never squatting, but we're going to do a lot of hex bar deadlifts. We're going to do a lot of kettlebell swings, and we're going to do a lot of lunges and step ups. There's your push pull for your lower body as your primaries. So we need to kind of tailor our programming. And then I would have some hockey players who squatted really well, but I couldn't load them up very much because they have these long, tall spines, and they had, some of them have very long legs. And like, this is not giving you the force output that you need. So I would tailor a lot of their programming based on, one, what's their anatomy, and two, what's their sport demand.
Makes sense.
So, and if the nervous system likes those things, guess what? They get stronger. And if the nervous system doesn't feel safe with those movements, guess what happens? We get inhibition, and the nervous system starts shutting down. Now, all of a sudden, we're plateauing. Oh, they're getting these little aches and pains. Oh, well, that's weird. We've been doing deadlifts. Well, are the deadlifts up high enough? Because maybe they can't touch their toes, and maybe we're loading the bar in too low of a position that's compromising their back. Maybe their femurs are too long, where it's pushing their center of gravity, or the bar too far away from their center of gravity, and they can't hinge effectively. So these are just aspects of just general performance, but the sport itself is going to take care of a lot of the sport specific things. You can condition somebody. You can get them pushing a sled, doing ropes, doing shuttles, doing agility ladders. Like, you can kind of get them doing a bunch of conditioning stuff, but nothing matches the conditioning like playing hockey.
Yeah.
I have a soccer background, and I know I swing kettlebells and I push sleds and I do all this stuff. And then as soon as I start playing soccer, I'm like, holy crap, I'm gassed. Because it's because your brain is just like, we haven't done this in a year. And now I have to work on coordination, and all this chaos is going on around me, and I'm standing on one leg, and I have to bounce around, and I have to juggle. And now I have to accelerate, decelerate with players. Like, all that input is not familiar with my nervous system. So the nervous system is going to create fatigue. So it wasn't that I wasn't fit. I just didn't have the capacity to manage all the inputs. And anything we do from a strength coach or rehab perspective, it's always inputs. And the nervous system is always evaluating, hey, does this feel safe? Yes or no? If it feels safe and I'm familiar with this, hey, I'm going to increase output. I'm going to let that heart rate go. We're going to increase acceleration. If something feels unfamiliar or unsafe, the nervous system's like, yeah, I don't quite like this. I'm going to start creating excessive muscle tension to protect and guard. I'm going to reduce muscle output, creating inhibition and decreased power. And I might make your heart race a little bit more because we're panicking. So now it seems like we're not fit. So I would step back away from, the sport specific and look at the human specific first. And then if that human athlete is all set up for success, hey, let's get super specialized now.
Oh yeah. Well, that is then that specialization is like, obviously things have changed. Like I'm 42. I used to train back home in Finland. That's like over 20 years ago. At the time, it was basically just doing things you just mentioned, doing heavy squats, 2-leg squats, like a powerlifting programming. And there's no like really or not too much like specific ice hockey training. And now like the first thing when I look now and think that how hockey players now, how they train now, it's totally different. Like
it is very different. Yeah.
It's all about like a single joint, like how you are playing the game. Like, you are not using both legs, like movements. Obviously getting stronger, squats are great thing, but on hockey, you never use two or barely never use two legs at the same time. Like, and it's then, like you mentioned, lunges, things like that. Those are the closest ones, or step ups, deadlifts, what you basically need the most. And there you can load things too. But that is a very good point that, that kind of nervous system, that if you are lacking some like mobility or flexibility, that you can't get full range of motion, and then how that affects to your nervous system, and you compensate it with something else, so you don't feel the exercise how you should be feeling it. So that's such a great point.
Yeah, and even in kind of the third phase where we get more into speed.
Would you mind repeating? I lost you again, Tom. Sorry, still can't hear you.
Now?
No.
Can you hear me now?
No, yeah.
Good. Okay. When we get into the kind of the third phase, right before season starts, we're getting into a little bit more power, more speed, more skills. And I would combine and create these circuits that combine all those things. So for example, they would do heavy hex bar deadlift drops. Then they would do some hurdle jumps. They would quickly sprint across the gym. Then they would hit an agility ladder, some kind of pattern. And then they would grab 3 tennis balls, put water in their mouth, and then walk across the balance beam and juggle. Because what we did is we increased power, speed, we gassed them a little bit. And now I got to get them to slow down and calm down so that their mind doesn't get away from them. So they're holding water in their mouth, breathing, which forces them to breathe through their nose. They're walking across the balance beam, so they have to slow their steps. And then they have to do something very complex with their eyes and their hands. But if they start to panic, they drop a ball or they fall off the beam. So it's kind of ramping them up with high intensity, and then that get them to calm down really quickly. So it's shifting between that sympathetic, parasympathetic, and manipulating some of the neurological inputs and forcing them to, hey, like you're going to do something under fatigue in a very complex situation at a very high skill. You better not freak out. Right. So it's kind of playing with those things. And once you understand how the visual system, vestibular system, breath work, how to upregulate, downregulate, how to prime the nervous system with heavy lifts, and then I apply like once you understand all the fundamentals, you can get very creative and you can stack them all together. So then they're doing a ton more work, but in a lot less time. Like my guys, they didn't work out more than an hour, but they got a crap load stronger. They got a lot faster, and their bodies didn't hurt.
Wow.
because I wasn't overloading their tissues. They would do something similar. Every single workout was kind of always a full body with either a lower emphasis or upper emphasis, but the other emphasis was like a light lower or calisthenics or ground movements, crawling, agility, whatever it is. So we were training the full body every single workout, but they never got sore. But their muscular endurance went up, their strength went up, their power went up, and their vertical and their speed went up. So which tells us, I'm like, okay, because it's hockey, like any sport, it's not, hey, let's go train legs. Yeah, but now your legs are gassed for the next 2 days and they're useless.
Yeah.
So how's that going to translate over into skating? It's going to suck. Like they're going to be slow. So, and this is kind of how I approach a lot of, like, I just worked with the world's strongest man and helped him sort out a lot of issues. So he titled again with everything. And then alpine skier, Olympic alpine skier. It was always, I'd always start with an assessment to see what their movement deficiencies are, where they're breaking down. Is there any kind of top down, center out problems? And then I would build it out from there. And when you think about how we developed as children, right? Embryologically, we're a bunch of tubes. Everything starts to organize in specific layers. And then when baby's out into the world, where does baby start to learn to move? It's on the ground, moving its arms and legs. It starts to roll, it starts to crawl, it starts to sit up. World's strongest man, for example, he couldn't stand on his left side more than 3 seconds. Wow. And just having all these right groin, right knee, right low back issues. So I look at a squat, he's shifting to the right side. I'm like, well, because your nervous system knows the left side is unstable. So first time I saw him, we decompressed his dura. We got his neck was actually causing a lot of issues. So he had a top down problem. Anytime he looked up, he lost his glutes. Muscle testing. Wow. I'm like, your glutes are turning off. And then we did some rolling patterns to the left because he couldn't roll to the left. 3 exercises. He texted me the next day. And he's like, I just PR'd my back squat for 4 reps with no pain. I'm like, awesome. Because we organized his structure and we organized his nervous system. And the nervous system said, hey, I feel safe with this now. Let's take the brakes off. So I use that as an example because somebody like that, he's lifting thousands of pounds, right? World's strongest man. Yeah. And he felt an immediate difference. And he saw that quick of a change in his output the next day. And simply because we kind of recalibrated or we reorganized his nervous system, make the structure feel safe. Nervous system said, yep, I feel good here. Let's go. Wow. So we just took a model of, hey, he can't do these fundamental things. He can't stand on the left leg and he can't roll to the left. Let's clean those up. Let's give him back a better neck position. And all of a sudden, his power and his lifts went through the roof. I was like, well, that's cool. Yeah. So
and it was not just working harder, it was working smarter and addressing those things.
They work hard. Like these professional athletes, they work the hardest.
Yeah.
And then they come into these little aches and pains and they're like, I don't know where this came from. I'm like, okay. But if you start breaking down the fundamentals and you're like, hey, you can't do this very simple thing that we used to do as a baby. Maybe we clean this up and then we go back up and retest and see if it worked. So I hate guessing. I don't want to look at a squat or a deadlift or somebody running and be like, hey, you're trying to lumber, your glute's not turning on. Okay, well, why? Because movement's very individual. You can't say, oh, it's a glute medius problem. Yeah, maybe. Or is it the foot turning off the hip? Or is it the neck that's turning off the hip? Or is there a spine rotation issue? Or is there a lumbopelvic? You don't know. So when you start going back down through kind of these fundamental patterns and be like, hey, you're breaking down at this one. Let's clean this up and work our way back up. So now you're rebuilding movement from the ground up, just like we learned how to do it as babies.
Yeah. Wow.
And we all, as humans, we all abide by the same rules of biology. We all have the same rules of chemistry. We all work on the same laws of physics, gravity, friction, and movement patterning. Right?
Yeah. Do you have, like, this is such an interesting topic, at least for me as a coach. So what kind of strategies for you use for incorporating this nervous system evaluations and into the regular training routines? Like you mentioned that you kind of combined kind of everything at the same workout.
Yep.
And do you have any other strategies?
Yeah. So I also teach the athletes how to stand themselves because, the primary job of the strength coach is making sure the athletes don't get hurt. Because once they get hurt, well, now they got to go into the rehab side of things, which is now the PT's job. But as the strength coaches, our job is to make them as resilient as possible so that if they're not getting hurt, they can train more. If they can train more, they perform better. So it's hard to kind of sit there and, I got to assess every single athlete. I'm responsible. How many athletes do you have?
I have, right? It's 25 to 30. Right.
So impossible to sit there and assess every single athlete from an individual perspective. So what I did is I streamlined kind of the advanced movement therapist assessment into a 3-minute scan. It's called the SAM scan, which is self-awareness movement scan. I teach the athletes how to do this on themselves. And what it does is the top 3 tests, it looks at the cerebellum. The cerebellum is the part of the brain that looks at rate, rhythm, force, and accuracy of our movement system. So it looks at movement coordination, looks at movement quality. So the first 3 tests they do is they're clearing out their cerebellum because they've been rotating to the left so many times, maybe they've got a right cerebellum inhibition. So they do the 3 cerebellum tests, and then they look at the top down. They look at the neck, they look at global flexion, which is the toe touch. They look at back bend, rotation, side bend, single leg balance, shoulder mobility, and they look at some hip stuff. And what they do is it takes 3 minutes to do, but they pick off where their problems are or where their imbalances have occurred. And then they can self-correct. So now, rather than you as the coach saying, all right, Kathy, we need to do your SAM scan. Oh, we got to do now she needs 15, 20 minutes of your attention to fix the issue. Oh, sorry. We'll pause for a second. They're doing an announcement on the ship.
This is your captain speaking. You would like to set sail, so please captain
no worries. That's funny.
You know that you're on board and we can depart. Thank you.
We're departing soon. So, I would teach this to every single athlete. My NHL guys would come in. They would fill out what's called a dark Q, how they're feeling, how much sleep they got, what's their energy 0 to 10, what's their stress, what's their durability, blah, blah, blah. And then they would check grip strength and blood pressure, heart rate. And then what they would do is they would do the SAM scan. They would do this top-down assessment, look at how their nervous systems, how their movement system is working, the movement brain, and then how the structures. And then they would find, my hip's not opening up with this Faber's test. Now they know, okay, I need to go do the banded hip mobility work. I need to do some shin boxes and then some fire hydrants. Okay, great. Go check it. Is it cleared up? Great. Go do your warm up. So that 3-minute scan gave them 2 minutes of corrective exercise. And then now they're all balanced out, potentially reducing injury because now they don't have an imbalance and they can go and do their workout. Now their nervous system is kind of happy with how they're moving. And now the brakes have been taken off and they're like, oh, wow, I can squat better. Oh, wow, my balance is better. Great. Now go do some deadlifts and kettlebell swings and runs. But if they can't stand on one leg with their eyes closed for 10 seconds, how do you think running's going? Probably not going well, right? Or how do you think your stride's going to be in hockey? You're not going to turn really well on that. You're making a turn. You can't load up that leg to load the skate and get a proper edge. Your nervous system is going to shift to the stronger leg, but now it's going to throw you off balance, and it's not going to be as sharp, right? So, teaching the athletes how to look after themselves and how to scan their bodies to look for imbalances before they become an injury is, for me, probably the biggest tool you can give them. Because then whatever you program for them, it's not going to hurt them. It's going to help.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely. And that's, we were talking about it a lot.
I can send that to you.
Yeah, no, that would be awesome.
I'll send you the SAM scan. It's all videoed out. And then let me know how it goes.
And I would definitely test it right away and put it into action, because this is something like, because this is a kind of that athlete's mentality. Like I'm sure you know it, and all athletes know it. Like, because it's especially like, I would say that 90% of athletes, like especially hockey players, it's still that mentality that if you are not, especially women, if you are not sore, it wasn't a good or effective workout. Or if you don't feel tired, it was not enough. And that is like I still try to. You are laughing, but somebody, if women's team is listening this, they are like that. Yeah, but it was not. It could be harder. Of course, it could be harder.
Of course, it could be.
At a coach's job, it's the easiest job of any coach is to make someone sore or tired.
I tell people, I'm like, a monkey with a stopwatch can make you sore. Like
Yeah.
all you got to do is overload somebody enough and give them very little rest to recover. And yeah, you can make anybody throw up with a HIIT workout, or you can make anybody sore if you give them enough volume and intensity in one session.
Okay.
That's not the point. The point is to keep building the body. Why do you feel like you need to break down the body every single time? And then you go into a workout, you're so sore, and then the next day, well, you're still sore. So the body hasn't recovered. So are we building up by adding more? Are we causing more destruction? And check their strength and check their blood pressure, heart rate every time before the workout. If strength starts to go down, pressure is high before a workout, and their heart rate's high, they probably haven't recovered from previous day's workout.
Yeah.
Right? Something as simple as that. I mean, you could use force plates. If you got force plates, do vertical, do vertical jumps to see their force output. That's another metric we use with the ski team. But for home, I'd have them fill out that form and then check blood pressure, heart rate. And then I would look and be like, oh man, you got a crappy sleep. Your stress is very high. Your resilience sucks. Your energy's low. And you have high blood pressure, low grip strength, and high heart rate. Guess what today is? It's a light day. We're not going to do heavy plyos. We're not doing heavy lifts with a lot of explosiveness. We're still doing a workout, but we're going to do a little bit more calisthenics, mobility, neural activation. And then tomorrow, if your nervous system says, yeah, I'm good to go, great. We'll do that workout then. So adapting our plan, we have to be adaptable with our plans. It's not set in stone. Just because we have a heavy lift day, but if their nervous system and body is not ready for it, or it could hurt them, right? You're either going to dig them into a hole, or you might cause an injury. And then your job as a strength coach is now failed, because your main job is to make sure they're resilient. And also the mentality of, hey, I'm not sore enough. Guess what? You feel really good after this workout. Guess what you're going to want to do tomorrow? We're going to want to do another workout. If you're so sore and in pain, you could try and convince yourself, hey, this is good for me. But subconsciously, your nervous system's like, I never want to do that again, because you just caused pain to me. And now I'm going to find every reason for you not to do this to me again. So now it goes in protection mode. So, but if you feel good, you're like, hey, I can do more. Great. We're going to end on a good note, because then tomorrow you're going to come with that same mentality to work harder. And now we're building, and we're never breaking down.
Yeah, no, that's such a great point. And it makes so much sense when you say, so is there any for especially to how to optimize nervous system functions? Like, is there some specific training or recovery techniques do you recommend? Sorry, you cut out.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
Good enough. So it's all about states. So the nervous system, you have the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, right? Our listeners, for our listeners, our sympathetic nervous system is that fight, flight, freeze, or faint, which is that high output. We're going to run away from something. We're stressed out. We're going to fight something. We're kind of metabolizing things, and we're getting ready for action. And then your parasympathetic is your rest, digest, recover, and there's another one in there, but I won't say that with the audience. But the parasympathetic state is all about recovery. It's all about rebuilding the body back up. If we can manipulate those two states and transition between them quicker, then we have an advantage. So for example, we're doing a heavy workout. We want to increase sympathetic tone, meaning we want to get the heart rate up. We want to get the blood pressure going. We want to get the body ready for stress. So we can do some breath work. So if you do hyperventilations, great. What does that do? Increases sympathetic tone. Good. Now go lift something heavy. We can juggle. We can do some eye exercises, like taking your thumbs out in front of you and flicking your eyes left to right, walking across a balance beam. Your eyes shifting left to right is going to increase and stimulate what's called the sixth cranial nerve. It has a sympathetic ganglion on it. It's going to make the cerebellum pay attention. Walking across the balance beam, because now you're on a slight height and your feet are coming to the midline, your cerebellum, which is that movement brain, is going to pay more attention. Juggling balls, catching cards. There's lots of things we can integrate to kind of ramp up the nervous system. And then, okay, great. The brain's now paying attention. Now let's go lift some heavy things. Let's go jump over some stuff. Let's go do some front rolls. When we're done with the stress state, we want to quickly move into the parasympathetic state. Again, we can use breath work very calm, slow breath, doubling the exhale. So it's 3 seconds in, 6 to 8 seconds out, right? Doing kind of that coherent breath work. Anything where it's slow and controlled and nasal, we can shift the nervous system back into that parasympathetic rest and digest. Mm-hmm. There's this one famous powerlifter. He would do some heavy breath work, do his heavy lift, and then go sit in the corner for 2 to 5 minutes and do slow, quiet breathing. So he would ramp up, do the thing, and then recover very quick. Because when we're in that recovery mode, then we can ramp the system back up again. Mm-hmm. So we can do this from an acute state using a lot of breath work, some visual stuff, some vestibular activation, rolling, back rolls, front rolls, anything where we're kind of getting upside down that will make the brain pay attention. Mm-hmm. And then anytime we want to kind of calm the system down into that recovery state, so changing your position, getting your legs up a lot, laying down can cause more relaxation, more calm. And, anything what we're looking up close, kind of that we can utilize what's the third cranial nerve, where we're creating convergence and doing some breath work, can also help bring the system back down. And another thing too, and it seems silly, is if you've ever seen anybody tapping, Qigong uses tapping on the occiput or on bones or muscles, and then bouncing up and down on your heels can cause a quick relaxation state. It actually calms down the amygdala. We see it on functional MRIs. Calms down the amygdala and actually decreases blood pressure and heart rate pretty quickly. So there's lots of things we can do from a neurological perspective to either upregulate or downregulate. It's just knowing what state do we need to be in at the right time, and then what inputs we can apply quickly to kind of get us there.
Mm-hmm. No, that it makes so much sense, and thank you so much for explaining it. Like what type of exercises, why they are important, because this is coming from someone like you explaining like why, like because at least I gotta commit, like especially in a men's hockey, like doing some breath exercises or something. Yeah. It's at least it was, I don't know, now it's a little bit somebody's already getting their understanding how important it is and what kind of difference it makes. But this makes such so much sense to when you explain it, that why it what happens during that process, why it's important. And because it's again one of those things like which athletes usually they are overlooking, because it's just the breathing, like what it I just call lift heavy or work hard, it's not what some breathing exercise is going to do for my performance.
Yeah. I mean, breathing is it's the lowest hanging fruit you can do. It's taken for granted. Oh, well, I breathe. Yeah, but how you're breathing matters, because there's so many different forms of breathing that we can utilize to our advantage for recovery or performance. But it's knowing, and you don't need to know them all. You just need to have a handful that work for you and that you can quickly do. And that's it. People coming in with low back issues. One of the things that we look at posture, we look at movement. I also look at breathing. If they're breathing up into their neck and their ribs are flaring out, I know they're compressing their back. But what they're also in is they're in a stressed out sympathetic state. I need them to get them to slow down their breathing, teach them how to breathe into their diaphragm, which then shifts their state from that stressed out state to a relaxed state. And when they're in a relaxed state, now they can learn. Because when we are stressed, we don't create those neural connections. When we are in a kind of focused theta state, where we're in that parasympathetic state, now we can create those new neural connections for learning. But we can't do it when we're stressed out. It's just survival time. Yeah. So somebody comes in, they got back issues. I'm like, let's go after your breathing, because the diaphragm's a core muscle, and it's the first core muscle we use when we come into this world. So we need to get that on first. And then once you figure out where your diaphragm is, now you can activate the transverse abdominis and get the pelvic floor to kind of close everything down for you. So we need the inner core before the outer core. And so many people are used to bracing and holding their breath. I'm like, that's great when you need to lift up something heavy for a very short period of time. But it is a terrible strategy to use all day long. Right? So getting people to shift in the state, it's just making them aware of also what they're doing.
Yeah, because it makes, obviously, if you try to breathe normally and lift something heavy, not the best idea. But also the same thing, if you want to do something fast and you are kind of under stress and holding your breath, probably not the best strategy either.
No, yeah, exactly.
So is there any like what kind of because this is if some athlete want to maintain optimal nervous system health, is there some like a daily practices or something or sorry no
Yeah.
yeah
Oh.
no, this is like, is it like what kind of, is this like a breathing exercise, like how you would, if it's like just in evening, or would you do it like a before practice, after practice, or when is the best time to do, and what kind of practical routine, how it would look like?
So in the morning, for those who kind of don't like early mornings, who need a little burst of energy, doing some simple Wim Hof breathing, some hyperventilations, some Sufi breaths where you're stacking breath on top of one another, creates a little bit of hyperventilation. That's great for building energy. That's great for shifting us into that sympathetic ready state.
Sorry to interrupt you. How you do it? That you breathe through your nose or mouth?
Yeah. So the Sufi there's a Sufi technique where you take 3 to 4 breaths through the nose and you stack. So it's hyperinflating the lungs, it's popping open the alveoli, and then you're doing a hard exhale. And you do that 3 to 4 times. It will, if you're not used to it, it will cause a little bit of lightheadedness. But what it does is it helps over oxygenate the blood. It puts us into a little bit of a sympathetic state and it also increases the alkalinity of the blood. So that forces us to wake up and pay attention. Right after a lift, right after training, get the athletes to sit in a quiet place and you just do very slow breathing through their nose. So 3 to 4 seconds inhale, very quiet, almost where you can't tell that they're breathing. 6 to 8 second exhales. Do that for 5 minutes. Just doing this mindful breathing will shift them from that fight or flight sympathetic, where they needed to use it for training, right into parasympathetic, where they can start recovery. If they go right from training and they go eat a meal and then they're running around doing chores and they've never left the sympathetic state. So their body's still breaking down, right? Yeah. Because the point of training is to cause a stress where there needs to be an adaptation. But if you haven't turned off that stress response yet, then the body can never shift into recovery mode. So now what was a one hour workout now became a 6 hour workout. And they don't start recovering until they get to sleep. But now you've wasted 6 hours of recovery time simply because you didn't shift from the stressed out state to the relaxed recovery state. And it's very simple. All you got to get them to do is breathing. Just 5 minutes, sit down, do some slow, quiet breathing, set a timer, listen to some music, whatever it is get them to downregulate. They might not think that they're stressed out, but their physiology is. Oh, yeah. And our job, we want to get them, because if they got a second training session, if this is a morning training session and they have an afternoon one, and they don't downregulate, well, now they haven't even started to recover from the first session. And now they're compounding more stress on top. And now we're going to get into overreaching and potentially overtraining if you let that go long enough.
Oh, yeah. And this is, it's such a great, like, especially like, I want to apply it right away, like, because it's a situation, training camp, like a short event where you practice 2 times a day, and it's obviously some athletes, they are not used to it, and how to speed up recovery. This simple exercise is going to, like, because obviously it's for all athletes. You don't have possibility, you don't train every day, every time 2 times per day, but when you do it and it's happening like kind of occasionally, these kind of things, or if you have for example, games, back-to-back games, like, and of course, like, body is full of adrenaline after the game, body is under stress, and then to kind of sitting you down, like, because this is something like what I used to struggle. I still struggle, like, if you do late night some sport, you can't fall asleep very easily, and obviously mind is going through like everything what happened in the game or whatever, and then to getting that away from that, that is definitely some exercise what I'm trying to do myself, but also with my athletes.
Yeah, and experiment. You as the coach, before you start implementing anything new, experience it, know how it works with your physiology, because then once you have an understanding of you doing it enough, then you can better explain it to them. And then there's going to be better buy-in. Every single workout I've given to any of my athletes, I've done myself. Because in my head, I'm like, well, this makes sense. And most of the time it's right. But there's the odd time I'm like, I have some combinations of exercises. I'm like, no, the force output's down, doesn't feel right, and I have to make adjustments. So I always experiment on myself first before I prescribe anything.
Yeah,
and this
I'm exactly the same. I
great.
I love, like, I'm not just in the beginning of my career, I would probably just take exercises, put them together. But now, more experience, more you think about these things. And obviously I want to try it myself too, to know how it feels. Like, obviously I'm not going to feel the same way as somebody else, but still I have an idea if that makes sense, or if it's just a very bad idea, or even I know that some workouts maybe, it's not something what you probably naturally enjoy, but then when you feel it, you go through some phase, and then you know how it makes your body feel and what is like, because it's always kind of thinking that bigger picture. And but obviously I'm definitely with you with this one, that going through and trying myself first and then implementing some of those things to athletes, or obviously it could be something different, but trying myself too.
So the breathing right after performance, and then the next thing to kind of get the nervous system to shift is have a meal, right?
Oh, yeah.
The breathing needs to come first, because if you never shift the nervous system to rest, digest, and all of a sudden all the blood still in the muscles and there's no blood in the gut, you have a bunch of food in there.
Yeah.
You put the food in there, there's no blood, so there's no digestion. So now the food's rotting in the stomach. So you can see the importance of, and the order in which that needs to happen, because if they go run off eating a meal, well, all the blood's still in the muscles, and you haven't brought it back to the center yet because you haven't shifted states. And then the third thing is obviously sleep. It's tricky, travel, time zones, late games, we want to look at quality and quantity of sleep, the architecture of sleep, but also, trying to get them on a similar routine of going to bed and waking up at the same time. I know it's not always, reasonable, especially in season because of the travel, but optimize that sleep. I mean, you read anything with Dr. Matthew Walker or any kind of sleep experts. It's your number one performance enhancer. Sleep is so critical. Recovering in the hospital, that's what I did a majority of is sleep.
No, but it is Matthew Walker. That is such a great book.
Such a good book.
And sleep is something like where I have still feeling like I was for sure when I was younger underestimating it, and now when you focus really having same kind of circadian rhythm, obviously it's not always possible, but whenever it's possible, it makes such a big difference in how much more you can practice. And obviously there are always factors like we mentioned, games, something, but combining these all things, then you at least you are doing everything you can to maximize that recovery and bring it back. Thank you. That was such a helpful. I think we have been talking now already over an hour, and I have a feeling that we could keep going for another hour easily. And but for time reasons, gotta stop this now. I hope to get you to do a second episode at some point, because
I'd be happy to do. I'd be happy to do a part 2 for sure.
I would love to do part 2 with you. So, but before going to talking about part 2, when to do it, would you mind sharing where do people can find you? What is your social media handle? What is the best way to reach out if someone have questions, want to start coaching certification with you? Feel free to share everything.
The best place would be you go to www.amtcertified.ca. That's the Advanced Movement Therapist certification. This is the kind of culmination of 20 years and hundreds of courses, and kind of distilling it down into a complete system of orthopedic assessment, neurological assessment into high performance. And then there's a free webinar on there, 8 neuro hacks on how to reduce pain and move better. So you can feel free to sign up for that. There's a newsletter, lots of free information there. But if you want to start getting into the coaching side of things, the certification's there and available, and it's on demand. So as soon as you sign in, you can start today. My Instagram is swales.tom. My YouTube channel, lots of free stuff on there. Orthopedic testing, high performance stuff is Tommy Swales. What else do I have? YouTube is the AMT guy. And Facebook is Thomas Swales. So lots of different channels. I post lots of free content up there.
Yeah.
And we're actually starting our live coaching. So it's a digital course, but we're actually starting 1 week, 12-week coaching session, group coaching, starting January of 2025, where it's going to be a small block of students who have gone through the AMT system digitally, or who are working through it. And then it's going to be live Q&A, examples, but it's a 12-week, once a week coaching online that people can get access to ask questions, get clarification, and enhance their practice.
Amazing. I'll put all links to show notes. And thank you so much for coming, sharing your wisdom. This was such an helpful episode.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Turo.
Hold up, friend. Do you love FitMitTuro Fitness Podcast? If so, the best way to say thank you is to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review on iTunes. I know every podcaster wants you to leave a review, but it's because those reviews help the podcast to reach more people. I truly want to know what you think, and if this particular episode resonated with you, would you also please share it? Either send a link to someone who you think will find it valuable, or take a screenshot and post it into your social media and tell your friends and family why they should listen it. Make sure you tag me so I can hear your feedback and give you a little love. And if you aren't already following me on Instagram or TikTok, that's the perfect time to hit that follow button. Thank you for being here and listening to FitMitTuro Fitness Podcast.